available.
Of course, we're continuing to examine what is happening in our country, and since we spoke the last time to now, a lot of things, a lot of developments are and this whole crazy idea that is out there, that is being peddled by the PNC-led APNU AFC coalition about house-to-house registration. We want to address that tonight. I want to say before I give you a chance, that I want to say upfront to the folks who are viewing this program, house-to-house registration is unnecessary and is unconstitutional. We don't need house-to-house registration to update the voters list. And as we go along in the program, we're going to try to clarify and to set the records straight with regards to house registration, why we don't need that, and how simple the list can be updated. I dealt with it before, but for emphasis, I think we should deal with it again. But you've been out for a while. I give you a chance to get in here.
Oh yes, thank you, Ed, for having me this evening, and good night to all of our viewers here in Guyana and in the diaspora. First of all, I like to start by giving a philosophical stance to discussion. What I want to tell the people of Guyana is that the government is trying to superimpose an autocratic regime on an already established democratic system, which the PPPC has fought tirelessly to achieve and enhance between 1992 and 2015. So what you have is a government that is bringing a model that is inconsistent and incompatible with an already well-established system. So everything that you see playing out following the successful passage of the no confidence motion, and even prior to that, in terms of how they administered their policies, show clearly that the government was trying tirelessly to basically remodel the economy, to push it in an autocratic direction. And because we have institutions that are already established, needless to say that they're still fragile and we still have a long way to go, but they're robust enough to rebuff what this government is trying to force on the people of Guyana, and this would not persist. That is how I want to open this discussion.
Thank you very much, Hugh. And I want to spend some time to talk first and foremost before I get into the whole crazy idea and the blatant misinformation from the coalition with regards to updating the voters list. I want to focus a little on the failed protest action yesterday. This big organizing, I saw videos now surfacing of people ringing bells in the streets of some communities and saying to people, come out at 10 o'clock tomorrow, we have this huge protest outside GCOM, we're demanding our right to be on the list and the right to vote and so forth. All of that, and the whole cry about hundreds and thousands of young people being disenfranchised if house-to-house registration is not done, is a myth. They're all myths, because yesterday they had about 60, 70 persons showing up outside of GCOM. This is a political party that claims it has a stronghold. It controls Georgetown. It controls yes. Region 4. They have widespread support. Previously they did. They previously had huge supports in Georgetown and in Region 4. Barely, must about 60, 65, probably 70 max persons to go out there. And all the young people that they're claiming will be disenfranchised, we haven't seen them out there.
Yes.
We saw a few people who are in these political parties, probably hold a little bit of a leadership position. Sprinkles of of probably 10, 12 young people among the group. Going out there, they realize that the young people of this country, and I keep saying this, the generation of today, smart generation, they know the facts. They know that the PNC-led APNU AFC, the only intention they have is to hold on to power and to stay in there. So they're going to find all sorts of excuses. If we can go back to after the December 21 no confidence motion, when it was validly passed, and that's the position all along, it was validly passed. The president himself, the Prime Minister, Moses Nagamutu, said, we will respect the will of the people, we will respect what the parliament has said, the parliament has spoken. Then they realized that this, they woke up and they were shaken back into reality that this means the end of this coalition in office. Yes. Then, a gentleman who was supposed, a senior counsel who was supposed to be a very smart guy, came up with this whole issue of 34 being the majority. And Mr. Granger and Mr. Nagamutu and all the others say, hey, this is a chance for us to delay things. And they moved to they first asked the speaker to review his decision. He said, y'all don't bring that to me. The decision is final. They then moved to the High Court, the Chief Justice, and I know the Chief Justice can hold her head very high and walk because she respected the Constitution. Her ruling was rooted in law.
Yes.
And she said the only thing she ruled was that dual citizens should not be in Parliament. But she didn't invalidate the vote of Sharon Das Prasad. No. She said 33 was required to pass the no confidence motion.
Yes.
And they weren't satisfied. So they had 2 tiers already who said the thing was passed. You guys need to call the elections within 3 months. They went from there, they went to the appeals court, and we all know what happened at the appeals court, with how the decisions were made and so forth. And we moved to the CCJ. We moved to the CCJ where there is no one there can say that these are biased people because they have no interest whatsoever in Guyana. They have an interest as a court that has jurisdiction over Guyana, but they have no political interest or anything of that sort. And they ruled, and their ruling was rooted in law, and it was rooted, or it was surrounded by the principles, the democratic principles of modern societies. So it was not just law. They wanted to ensure that democracy stay alive in Guyana, and they rule in keeping with the constitution of our country. Yes. So by doing all of that, they bought themselves 3 months.
And following up on that, Ed, I think what the citizens of Guyana need to understand is the fact that the CCJ is not a foreign agent. It is, and their decision should not be seen as a foreign intervention. All right? It is our final court, and the decision of the CCJ must be upheld and adhered to. The President's message to the nation following the ruling of the CCJ created a lot of noise. It was baseless and without merit. So it was geared towards energizing the stronghold and the base of the PNC to lead the nation down a wrong path, which is irresponsible, and to a large extent it is inconsistent with how we should operate as a modern democratic society. So I want to appeal to the citizens of Guyana not to be misguided and be misled. Read for yourselves and make an informed decision based on the fact or the facts out there. The list is available. It is still a document that has relevance. There's some minor updating that can be done. I shouldn't use the word minor, but there's some updating that should be done with the claims and objections, etc., etc. So we don't need to go to house to house. Going to house really speaks to the fact that the government wants to really command the economy. We elect a government to participate in the administration of the affairs of government, not to command the people. What they're trying to do is to command the people and to let the people know that, listen, this is our direction and this is how it will be. That is not consistent with our democratic norms and principles. And the people of Guyana need to understand that and push back on either side so that we can have the process of moving towards early election be done with. We elect a government by the people, for the people, so that we can carry on the business of running this country. And all things being equal, the PPPC will be elected as the new government to continue taking Guyana forward. Because as it is, we're on a different track. We're on a track to disaster. And we cannot afford to go down this path. So we need to be responsible as citizens. We need to respect our institutions, and we need to move forward in the right direction. What the government is trying to do is to put us down a path that will be disastrous for Guyana. It will have an impact, a negative impact on our social and economic development. Not only for us as citizens here in Guyana, but it will affect our development in trying to attract investment. It will create a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, and the list goes on and on and on. And we need to pull ourselves together as a people and to denounce the actions of this government. Saying that you're going to obey the ruling and doing something different does not go well with us. We need to have stability, and we need to move forward in the right direction. And the right direction is to go to the polls, call a date, so we can get everything over and done with, consistent with the Constitution.
I'm glad you made that point, Hugh, about the CCJ. And I'm not going to deal with the matters before the CCJ, because the CCJ is going to make the consequential orders on Monday with regards to how we move forward. But I want to back your point up, because like you rightly said, the president made his statement that he's going to respect the ruling and so forth, which I think was just a public charade. It was just, for optics, to come out there and say that, oh, I'm going to respect the ruling. Because one of his very senior ministers, the Minister of State, on the protest yesterday, said that, and I'm on national television. I can't put the kind of description
yes, we need to be very civil.
But I mean, it's crazy. It's mind-boggling. A minister, senior minister, will say, we'll even bring in the question to say that the CCJ cannot direct us, because somehow the minister is trying to give the impression the CCJ is some foreign court.
Intervention, yes.
Comrades, the CCJ essentially is like a court in Guyana. It is the highest court in Guyana. It's not based here. And it's not the best example, but the CARICOM Secretariat is based in Guyana. But CARICOM has membership and has certain jurisdictions over all the CARICOM countries, all the Caribbean countries that signed on to the
CCJ.
I'm talking for the establishment of CARICOM.
CSMA.
I'm trying to remember the name of when CARICOM was established. The fact of the matter is
Treaty of Chaguaramas.
The Treaty of Chaguaramas. So they're all members. CARICOM essentially is a part of each country. The CCJ is a part of each country. The CCJ has jurisdiction in all the countries in the Caribbean that would have signed on to make it its final court. So that argument of the CCJ can't direct us, we're an independent, we're a sovereign country, and so on. And I heard the Minister of Foreign Affairs as well talking about us being a sovereign country, so somehow to give the impression the CCJ has no jurisdiction. They themselves said from the onset that we're going to go all the way to the CCJ. Well, we went all the way to the CCJ, and the CCJ ruled It is time now for them to be mature. And look, you cannot hold on power. You have no authority right now. They're illegal. They're essentially illegal. But I want to address also, Hugh, before I bring you back in, the question of this crazy idea about house-to-house registration. It's not, like I said, it's not necessary, and it's unconstitutional. We, as a political party, the People's Progressive Party Civic, has been maintaining. I have a little bit of the flu got me a little bit, so you're gonna find that happening. I do apologize. Our position is, and we believe, and all right-minded Guyanese, all right-thinking Guyanese, and even I think the AP and the AFC themselves know this, that the list that we have can be updated where we can remove the names of dead persons and we can register those persons who have reached the age of 18 and are not on the list through claims and objections. A claims and objection exercise. The first thing is, house-to-house registration is not in the Constitution. That is why we are maintaining it's unconstitutional. The laws of this country allow for claims and objections and continuous registration, but we don't need continuous registration at this time. And I'll tell you why, so that you can have an understanding. During claims and objections, you do one, you go and you make a claim to get your name onto the list. You provide the relevant documents to say, I'm 18 years old, I'm a Guyanese by birth, or I'm a Commonwealth citizen living here for continuously for a year. And you make a claim to be registered and added to the list once you're going to be 18 at the qualifying date to vote in time for the elections. You also, during that period, you can have a transfer. Let's say you were living in Buxton and you move to Parfait Harmony and you want to vote in that area rather than having to go back to Buxton on election day. You can make an application, you can get a transfer to Parfait Harmony where you're now living. You can also have name changes. Possibly you're married, you want to update, you want to get your name, you want to get your married name onto the list. Or if there was a little error in the spelling of your name, minor things. You can have an adjustment to your name, you can get a name change. And you can also, very importantly, and this is the big question when the president talked about incorrect entries and so forth, there is nothing like incorrect entries on the voters list. Every name that is on that list were placed there legally. Yes. They were placed there legally, whether in 2008 when there was the house-to-house registration, whether the 2 cycles of continuous registration every year, the names were placed there legally. So, to remove the names of dead persons and so on from the list, what you do, you make an objection to a name that is on the list. You go in, probably the person died, you're a relative, you have the death certificate, you go into the GCOM office, and you have them remove the name. These are activities that can be done in time for us to have elections within 3 months.
Yes.
So, there is no need, there is absolutely no need for house-to-house registration. So the people who are going to be voting in the next elections are people who are 18 and who are going to be 18 by the qualifying date. Continuous registration does all that I said just now, where you're registered and then you still have to have a period of claims and objections where you're going to remove those persons. But continuous registration captures persons who are 14 years at the qualifying date. Even if you're 14 years now, and the elections are held next year, you cannot vote. So continuous registration is absolutely unnecessary. Claims and objections can make the adjustments necessary to have a list that is updated.
Yes.
The issue of house-to-house registration, in my personal view, I want to believe, and I'm holding very strong to this view. I think house-to-house registration at this time can disenfranchise more people, more Guyanese who are of the age to vote can be disenfranchised. Because when they're coming around to do the house-to-house registration, if you're not at home, then you're taken off the list. So you might be in the interior working as a miner, a logger, whatever you are, and you spend a long period there, and then after that you would come out, you can come out in time to vote or whatever. You're not registered. You could be on a vacation overseas. They come to your house, you're not there, they take you off the list. You will be back in time for the elections. Even if you're to work with the crazy date of November that they give us, because you go there for 6 months and you say, okay, I'm going to get back here in time for the elections, you're already on the list, they come to your home, you're not there, they take you off. Guyanese who are living overseas by right, they should be on the list. They are Guyanese by birth. You cannot take them off. You cannot. How are you going to say a Commonwealth citizen living in Guyana continuously for 1 year is eligible to be on that list and vote, but you're saying a Guyanese by birth who migrated and is living in another country cannot be on that list because he or she is not at home? Isn't that a crazy, confusing argument? So house-to-house registration is unnecessary and it's unconstitutional. So we shouldn't even go down that road.
Yes. And to add to that, Ed, I think the whole issue of house-to-house registration is a ploy. If you look at the actions of the government following the passage or the successful passage of the no confidence motion, you can tell that they were bitter and angry and upset having to go through this. And what they're trying to do is to deny the will of the people by frustrating the process. To say, listen, okay, you, the opposition, took this course and we will deny you the opportunity to enjoy the benefits of this democratic process. You can recall that at the CCJ, during the arguments, Judge Saunders went to pains to get clarity on the readiness of GCOM, and he could not understand how they could have been that tardy in their preparation, knowing very well that a no confidence motion was being brought to the National Assembly. He just couldn't understand it. And we have to be able to look at this entire saga in its entirety. There is a reason why the president wanted to appoint a chairman of his liking and choice, because he knows that the buck stops at GCOM. GCOM is that independent government apparatus that you can use to your benefit, in this case, to frustrate the process. Thankfully, the appointment of the GCOM chair has been deemed unconstitutional, and the likelihood of replacing the chair is likely to happen, so that ploy that was in the making will be foiled. So I am confident that we'll be able to hopefully replace the current person, I don't want to say chair anymore, with someone who is impartial and fit and proper, I might add, to lead this process. Because the government is trying to use GCOM, and I should say not the entire institution, but the chair of GCOM, to frustrate the process. And we can see that there's a strong correlation between what the government wants out of this no confidence motion and the behavior of Patterson when he was in that chair, because I don't believe we can say that he's in the chair still. So I believe that we have come a long way in terms of our maturity, in terms of our democratic institutions, and it would not succeed I'm hopeful that the consequential rulings on Monday will provide a way for us to move seamlessly through this process so that we can avoid all of the bottlenecks that the government is trying to put in the way of this passage of the no confidence motion bearing fruit. And the reality is that we must provide for elections. I think the opposition leader has been very responsible and very reasonable and very rational and practical in saying to the people of Guyana that we can go to the elections within 60 to 90 days. And I believe that the CCJ, in its good wisdom and understanding the political reality in Guyana, will ensure that they also would pronounce in a manner in which is practical, so that the people of Guyana can get some relief from the stranglehold that the government is actually putting the people of Guyana in. People are frustrated. One of the things I want to add as well too, as we're on this point, is that I want the people of Guyana to understand that we should not confuse what is happening now with a holy war. I believe that there are some sentiments out there that is trying to push the nation in a direction that, listen, we need a righteous man to run this country. A man that kneels and prays, a man who believes in God. This is a secular society. We need a government that can serve the people well, not a government that wants to be a government in place for itself and to command the people. So I don't want people to get confused with politics and religion. We need to separate it. We're dealing with a political institution, and we're dealing with people who should have the ability to run a country, not a belief system. So we need to make that clear to the people of Guyana, because there's a lot of sentiments being put out there, and people are not necessarily, I shouldn't say capable, but not necessarily, or I should say they're very confused as to what is really going on. And I think we need to understand that there's a process that needs to be followed. The Constitution needs to be respected, and we need to look at the facts and not to be confused with other information that is being put out there to confuse the population. So it's not a war with good versus evil. This is a war based, well, I shouldn't say a war, I shouldn't say that at all. This is a matter that needs to be resolved based on our adherence to the Constitution.
Yes.
Simple.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Eddie.
Hi, good evening.
And you are the guy. Y'all doing a good job. They keep it up. I hope you get a good result on Monday. And then the election come and everything comes. Because I don't understand what going on. The minister saying CCJ can't do nothing and wants to sort of thing yesterday on the protest. So I hope everybody get a very plan and know where to put them in.
Thanks for coming through.
One stronghold, and I always do until I die.
I'm happy. Thanks for coming through.
For your good work, and you're doing your best. Thanks.
Thanks for coming through. Yes, we're going to start take some more calls. We want to hear from you. And if you have any clarification that you need with regards to why claims and objections can fix the list and there is no need for the issue of house-to-house registration. House-to-house registration should be off the table completely. Good evening.
Good evening, dear sir.
Hi, good evening, brother.
I just want a comment to make.
Yeah.
They said the voters is fouled, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the same list that put them into power. If the list had been tampered with, it's they tampered with the list. You understand what I'm saying? Thank you. Good night, sir.
Thanks for coming through.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hey, good evening, Mr. Layne.
Hi, good evening, brother.
Yes, I just want to talk about, I want you guys to publish a cost for the whole process of this no confidence. The entire cost for all the ministers to go there and the entire waste of money, you know. I think it's in the tune of millions of dollars, and the Guyanese public, at least for me, and my friends, we need to know what money was wasted, right?
All right, thanks.
And, another contribution I'd like to make is that you guys partly caused this government to be in the PPP because of laws made by some forces in the party. So when you guys get into power again, right, I'd like a special effort to be made to get rid of the bad eggs in the party. I know you might not be able to get rid of all of them, but at least try to clean the party up as much as possible so that you'll be able to stay in power and govern this country in the right way.
Thanks for coming through.
Right.
All right, so I want to deal with a couple of issues that were raised while we take some more calls. One is that one caller made a very important point. That this, and I think we could be making this point. This is the list, the same list that was used for the 2015 elections.
Yes.
In 2016, when we had the first local government after they got into power, there was no question. It was the same list. In 2018, November, the same list. But they saw the results of the 2018 local government elections and they realized that their time is up.
Unfortunately or fortunately.
And and you know the whole thing about we need to throw out the entire list and we need to get a new list and all sorts of things. Why do we need to? There are hundreds of thousands of people on that list that are here and are ready to vote. What we need to do is to remove the few names of persons who died, and I don't think so many people died. It would be really looking really bad in this government if so many people died. Hundreds of thousands of people died between, you know, and to those persons who may not have made it, who may not have gone to one of the registration centers during the continuous registration and register, the claims and objections can afford the opportunity to get onto the list.
Yes.
And we get this thing over with, and we go. But you know what? One comrade who was in the belly of the beast was telling me last evening on another program. He came from the PNC and he said, you look at it. Every time the PNC, and the PNC is controlling the show here, every time the PNC realize that they're not going to win an election, they start creating all sorts of confusing arguments about the list. All the elections from 1992. In 2015, they said nothing about the same list that they have a problem with now, because they thought somehow that, you know what, we're going to win these elections. Whether or not there was whatever intervention, whatever, if there was rigging, but they somehow thought they would have won the elections, so there was no problem with the list. Now that they realize that they've wasted 4 years, or they've spent 4 years to destroy this country, and to make Guyanese poorer, while they get richer, and to destroy the economy, start destroying the physical infrastructure of this country, they realize Guyanese want nothing else to do with them. So they start selling this argument of, oh, the list is bad. So when they lose the elections within 3 months, they can go back to their supporters. You see, I told you the list is no good. And that's the argument that this gentleman gave me last night. That's the perspective, and I think it's a good perspective. And I think it's that.
And the reward for their incompetence is our elections.
Exactly.
And they need to embrace that, because it's democracy at work. If they believe that they can get a new mandate, they go to the polls, you get a new mandate, and you move on.
And that's the
Nothing is wrong with going to an early elections. It's part and parcel of how democratic or modern democratic countries operate. So it's not strange to us. This is not the first country that is going through a no confidence motion, right? So they need to embrace it. They need to show stewardship, leadership, and let's move forward and stop playing games, because it's not good. It's very distasteful, and it's sending a very bad message or signal to our sister CARICOM countries and to our traditional partners and
the international community at large
as a whole. And it's wrong, and it's uncalled for, and I don't have words to express how I feel about this situation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, brother.
How are you doing, Eddie?
Well, I'm here.
Well, one question for you two gentlemen.
Yes.
July is CARICOM month.
And in keeping with normal procedures, CARICOM head of state will normally meet and to deliberate on issues surrounding Caribbean and the outer world. Now that we fall in this predicament, what is the likely position with our head of state in terms of his attendance?
Well, legally we don't have one per se, unless some other life is being is breathed into the whole process. Whether so as it is now, the government is unconstitutional, and that's a very interesting question. I'm happy that you asked that question. I'm not in a position to answer that question now, but I want to assure you that I'll try to find the answer and I'll get back to you with regards to how we move forward. But it's a very, very interesting and important question that you're asking there. All right?
And I can add to it, that is also a question that should be posed to the president. I would imagine that he can excuse himself given the situation here in Guyana, and it will be well accepted and embraced, because we have domestic matters that are pressing. So I don't see how he would want to be representing a nation that is on in this
Does he no
type
longer
of
have
situation.
any right to represent?
So I would just imagine that he will excuse himself, and it would be well endorsed.
Good evening.
Good evening. One question I want, two questions in fact.
Yes, brother.
That I want to come out for the election with the list that one, right? Like Alpha Canal 2. If now in COVID with Jack due for make the presentation for get the chairman, to get a new chairman, the 24th will be Monday, right? Now, what decision did CJ make for make their own decision for put a chairman in there?
All right, I'll answer those questions for you.
Yeah.
All right. One, they have no choice. They can't say they don't want to come out. The CCJ has ruled. The Constitution, Article 106, and more so Article 106.6, and more so Article 106.7 of the Constitution, very clear as to what are the consequences after a no confidence motion. So this whole thing about them not wanting to come out, don't worry with that. That could be dealt with, and I think there are avenues through which that could be dealt with. The second issue that the caller raised with regards to them going to the CCJ, we cannot say at this point what will be the consequential orders of the CCJ, but we would want to suspect the consequential orders are going to be in keeping, like the ruling of the CCJ,
Yes.
consistent with the Constitution, and more so consistent with Article 106.7 of the Constitution with regards to the no confidence motion. With regards to the chair of GCOM, I think the consequential order I would want to suspect would be in keeping with the ruling of the court. So we have 3 minutes more. All right, so let's see if we can take 2 calls more or so, and then we're gonna try to wrap things up. But good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening, dear.
I agree with you about the no confidence vote and the list. They could use not the same list. Just search it through. Who is alive still, who is dead, take them out. And the younger people before the age of 18, they could, register them. So you need to spend billions of dollars.
Agree.
House registration.
Thanks for coming through.
And here now, one more thing. The story with GPL, what is doing now, they have some house to house, they inquire about your meter, and then they're raising electricity bill and tell you, like, from 2015 that they don't read it right, and you got to pay this and that and pay VAT on it. I don't understand that.
That's something new. I'll try to investigate that for you on Monday and see if I can get some information, all right?
Yes, but I agree that's how they don't need to redress the people house to house. This wasting of money and time.
Thanks for coming through, dear.
And I think that the president should agree with CCJ because they wanted to go there and do the right thing as a leader and come out, resign, and get the election going. Don't waste time because I have the money for it.
All right, thanks for coming through, all right?
All right.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, dear.
One of my questions, a gentleman asked and Chris answered, that was CARICOM Day. Now, another one, I'm going to speak with the CCJ. This country had a case with CCJ where they say it was there that Dr. Barjagio, they were deciding if he must have a third term. The CCJ ruled according to the Constitution and said he could only have 2 terms. If they were happy about it. Now, the CCJ has ruled on the no confidence and on GCOM chairman. I don't know what's wrong. And I'm very, very surprised at the Foreign Affairs, as our Foreign Affairs Minister, making a statement the other day on public television. Something is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming through. All right, we're going to take one more. It must be a short call, and then we're going to wrap this up. Okay, my operator is saying that we're out of time. So, again, I just want to quickly, in about 15 seconds, operate, and I'll probably give you 15 because we don't want to go over the time. We don't need house-to-house registration. We can work, we can update the current list that we have. Yes, the argument is expired. The same list can work. When you say the list is expired, doesn't mean all the people die from the list. Yeah. So you need a new one. So what we need to do is claims and objections where persons who are off the list, who are of voting age, can go in and make a claim, get registered, and be on the list. Persons who would have moved from one place to another can go and have a transfer. And of course, those persons who would have died, you can go and have them removed. Matter of fact, that should have been ongoing because of the relationship that was established between the General Registrar's Office and GCOM. So, no house-to-house registration. We need claims and objections to fix the list and have the elections within 3 months.
And quickly, to the youths of Guyana, you don't need to worry. There is no need for panic. Your names will be on the list, and you will be able to exercise your franchise and vote in the upcoming elections. Thank you.
Good. See you next week. Bye for now.